Welcome back everyone to Floki's Models. Today I'm going to be making a base for the AFV Club Sd.kfz 233. To start, I'm going to make a building for the scene, or part of one at least, from XPS foam. To hold the two pieces together, I'll be using Mod Podge with two picks to keep it all aligned. I apply the Mod Podge with a cheap disposable brush. And then hold it all together with some bar clamps until it's all set up. Once that's set up, I trimmed it down some more with my Proxxon foam cutter, then measured and cut a piece for the roof. This is also glued in place with Mod Podge and clamped in place to dry. Then, using one of the 1/35th scale figures that I will be using for the scene, I measured out the door opening. I then cut it out using a straight edge and a sharp number 11 blade. Next up, I wanted to show some damage on the stucco exposing the blocks underneath, so I sketched it out first with a pencil, then deepened the line with a number 11 blade and the sharp end of a sculpting tool. I then used the other end of this tool to press the foam down some under the line I just created. Now to add the stucco texture. This is sanded grout mixed with some Mod Podge and tap water. Using another one of them cheap disposable brushes, I apply this to the entire building where I want the stucco texture. I ended up adding 2 coats of this mixture to the building. And once it was set up, I lightly sanded the entire surface. Then I started carving in the blocks using the same sculpting tool from earlier. This green XPS foam doesn't take carving very well, The pink stuff, in my opinion, seems to be a lot easier to carve into. Then, using a toothpick, I widen all the lines. Then, using a rock, I press it into the surface of the blocks to create more texture. How it's all looking so far. Then, making a mixture of Mod Podge and cheap black acrylic paint, I cover the entire building with it. This works in two ways. One, it protects the exposed foam, and two, it unifies the color. After that is dried, I take Vallejo Deck Tan and do a heavy dry brushing over the entire building. Again, how it's looking so far. Moving over to the spray booth, I'll mix some Tamiya XF57 Buff 1:1 with Mr. Leveling Thinner. And I'll spray this mixture over the entire building. And how it's looking at this stage. Now, using these two colors, Vallejo Beige Brown and Orange Brown, I'll mix a few different shades and randomly paint the stone blocks with them. Then I'll come in with some Vallejo German Camo Black Brown and paint all the areas between the stone blocks. And what it looks like at this stage. Next up, I'll take some Vallejo deck tan and dry brush the entire building with this. It's really starting to look all uniform now. This is a burnt umber acrylic ink wash made from flow improver, distilled water, and burnt umber acrylic ink. I apply this over the entire building. I'm also using a black acrylic ink wash in places too, and blending the two together. I'm going to cut a piece of black styrene sheet to block out the back side of the building. I first trace the shape onto the sheet of styrene, then score and snap it to shape. I will glue this into place later with some Mod Podge. Now to make the curtain to cover the doorway. First, I trace the shape of the door onto a piece of cardboard, then cut it out. Using a piece of Viva paper towel, I used the template to cut a piece for the door curtain. I cut about a 1/4 inch larger than what I need. I'll then skew it onto a toothpick and scrunch it all up. Now I'll be making a mixture of Mod Podge, tap water, and Vallejo German Camo Orange Ochre. Then I'll mix it together all good. I'll dip the doorway curtain into this mixture. At first I tried to spread it up with a paintbrush, but then opted to just dunk the entire curtain in. When this dries, it'll be rock hard. Using a small section of toothpicks, I trap the toothpick holding the curtain into place. Once I was happy with the way the curtain was looking, I took a lot of Mod Podge and went around the edge of the curtain to lock it all into place. That's set aside to dry, and I turn my attention to the final details of the 233. Working on the mufflers, they have been airbrushed Tamiya medium gray. Then using a mixture of Vallejo light gray and ivory, I sponged this onto the mufflers. Then taking Abteilung 502 dark and light rust oil paints that I made into a wash with VMS Oil Expert, I apply this to the mufflers, going back and forth between the two colors, blending them as I go. And how they are looking. Now to start on the groundwork. I'm using a picture frame from IKEA for the base, and using DOS clay held down with Mod Podge for the first layer. Then using tap water to smooth it all out. I then set the building into place. The next layer will be Ammo by MIG Light Earth Ground. I concentrate on filling in all the gaps and cracks with this first. While it is still wet, I use several different sizes of model railroad ballast and sprinkle it over the surface. Back to the spray booth using a mix of Tamiya XF57 Buff and XF60 Dark Yellow. I paint the groundwork with this mixture. Then using some Vallejo Desert Yellow, I dry brushed the ground, concentrating on picking out the railroad ballast I added earlier. Then to start adding everything to the base, starting with all these jerry cans. The main gun gets added to our 8 rad. Then the photo etch shield gets CA glued into place. Followed by the mufflers. And finally the figures. Now to the final shots, starting with some that I took of just the building. Well, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this build series. I sure had a lot of fun building all of this, especially making this building. Let me know down in the comments what you think of the build. Give it a like if you did like it, and subscribe if you haven't yet. And as always, stay tuned for many more builds to come.